The void of space stretched endlessly around the small scout ship, Seeker. Its hull, once gleaming with the silver-blue markings of the Valen fleet, now bore the scars of narrow escapes and desperate maneuvers. Inside, Captain Gray hunched over the communications console, his slender blue fingers trembling slightly as he reviewed the data one final time. "Are you certain this is wise, Captain?" asked First Officer Trell, her large amber eyes reflecting the dim emergency lighting of the bridge. "The humans, they were primitive when we last observed them, centuries ago." Gray didn't look up from his work. "What choice do we have? The Mord have taken 3 outer colonies in the past month alone. The homeworld will fall within weeks." The Seeker drifted in the shadow of a small moon, hiding from the constant sweeps of moored scout vessels. They had jumped to this system specifically because ancient Valen records suggested it was close enough to Earth to send a signal, but far enough from Valen space that the Mord wouldn't detect their presence. The Council ordered all ships to return for the final defense, Trell reminded him gently. Gray finally looked up, his pale face set with determination. "And what good is one small scout ship against the Mord fleet? This way, at least we try. Something different." He turned back to the console and pressed his hand against the transmitter pad. The ship's computer had spent days translating their message into basic human languages, along with visual data showing the Mord attacks and technical specifications of their weapons and shields. "Message encoded and ready," the ship's computer announced. Gray took a deep breath. "Send it." A soft pulse of energy left the ship, carrying with it the desperate hopes of a dying civilization. The message was simple. "People of Earth, we need help. The Mord Collective threatens all free life. Your assistance once saved others. Please respond." Trell watched the energy signature fade into the distance, heading toward the small blue planet several light years away. "What do you expect them to send? A diplomat, a scientist, one ship?" Gray's shoulders slumped slightly. "Anything would help at this point. Even their perspective might offer something our scientists haven't considered." Little did they know that in the centuries since the Valen's last observation, humanity had changed in ways they couldn't imagine. Admiral James Wilson stood at the window of Lunar Command, looking out at the Earth hanging in the blackness of space. At 62, his hair had gone completely white, but his posture remained as straight as when he'd first joined the United Defense Fleet 35 years ago. "You're certain about the translation?" he asked without turning. Behind him, Dr. Lisa, Park nodded, her eyes still fixed on the data tablet in her hands. "Yes, Admiral. Our linguistics AI confirms it with 98.7% certainty. This is a genuine distress call from an unknown species calling themselves the Valen. They're under attack by something called the Mord Collective." Wilson turned from the window. The command center bustled with activity as technicians and officers processed the incoming data accompanying the distress signal. "And the technical data they've sent?" "It's extensive," said Commander Ben Foster, the fleet's tactical officer. "The Mord appear to be a hive-mind species with partially synthetic biology. Their ships use quantum-linked shields and plasma-based weapons, formidable but not beyond our capabilities." Wilson walked to the central holographic display where images of strange ships with angular insect-like designs fought against smaller, more elegant vessels. The smaller ships were clearly losing. "Location? The Valen homeworld is approximately 40 light-years from Earth," Foster replied. "With the new jump drives, we could have a response fleet there in under 2 weeks." Wilson's eyes narrowed as he studied the data. The Valen clearly had no idea of humanity's current capabilities. Their message suggested they expected at most a diplomatic envoy or perhaps a single ship. They didn't realize that in the centuries since humans had last encountered alien life, Earth had united under the pressure of existential threats and built a fleet designed to ensure humanity would never face extinction. "The Security Council will need to approve any major deployment," Dr. Park reminded him. Wilson nodded slowly. "Schedule an emergency session for 0800 tomorrow. Have all this data packaged and ready for presentation." He paused, watching the simulation of moored ships decimating a Valen colony. "And begin quiet preparations for the Third Fleet to mobilize." 3 days later, the United Earth Security Council chamber fell silent as Admiral Wilson concluded his Presentation. The Mord Collective represents exactly the type of threat our fleet was built to counter, he said, standing tall before the 12 council members. Based on the data provided, they systematically consume all resources in a system before moving to the next. The Valen are simply in their path. Councillor Rivera leaned forward. And you believe we should commit significant forces to help an unknown species? This isn't our fight, Admiral. With respect, Councillor, it became our fight the moment we received their call, Wilson replied firmly. We've built this fleet not just to protect Earth, but to uphold the principles that united us. If we ignore this, what message does that send to other peaceful species? More practically, if the Mord consume the Valen, they'll only grow stronger before eventually finding us. The Council President, Dr. Omar Catton, studied the Admiral thoughtfully. What exactly are you proposing? I recommend deploying the Third Fleet under my command. 50 ships, including the Dreadnoughts Deterrent and Resolute. We've analyzed the Mord weaknesses and believe we can halt their advance. The Council chamber erupted in whispers. 50 ships represented the largest deployment in human history. That would leave our core systems with reduced protection, noted Councillor Chen. Wilson nodded. A calculated risk, but our perimeter defense systems are more than capable of handling any known threats while the fleet is deployed. After hours of debate, the Council voted. The decision, humanity would respond to the call. Back on the Seeker, Captain Gray received the shocking news from Valen High Command. They've detected what? He asked, certain he had misheard. A massive energy signature approaching the outer boundary of Valen space, repeated the commander on the secure channel. At first, we thought it was a new Mord battle group, but the signature is completely different. Initial analysis suggests multiple ships, many ships. Gray felt his heart's racing. From Earth? We cannot confirm, but the trajectory matches. Captain, what exactly did you ask these humans for? Gray stared at the data streaming across his screen, showing energy readings far beyond anything the Valen fleet had ever produced. I just asked for help. As the Seeker raced toward home, Gray wondered what kind of civilization could respond to a simple distress call with such overwhelming force. What had humanity become in the centuries since the Valen last observed them? And would their arrival mean salvation, or simply a new kind of doom? The fate of the Valen now rested in the hands of a species they had drastically underestimated. The massive hangar bay of Lunar Station Alpha hummed with activity. Shuttles darted between larger vessels, carrying supplies and personnel. At the center of this organized chaos stood the UES Deterrent, a Dreadnought-class warship stretching nearly 2 kilometers from bow to stern. Its dark hull absorbed light rather than reflected it, making the massive ship seem like a hole cut into space itself. Commander Jack Reed walked along the observation deck, watching as the final preparations for departure unfolded below. At 45, Reed had spent more than half his life in space, commanding everything from small patrol vessels to battle cruisers. The silver streaks in his dark hair and the faint scar running along his left jaw told stories of battles fought and won against various hostile forces at the edges of human space. Quite a sight, isn't it? Reed turned to find Admiral Wilson approaching, his white uniform crisp and immaculate despite the 36 hours of non-stop preparation. 50 ships, Reed said, shaking his head slightly. The largest force we've ever assembled outside our solar system. Wilson came to stand beside him at the railing. And you'll be leading them into unknown territory to face an enemy we've only seen in data transmissions. Reed's expression remained calm, but his eyes narrowed slightly. The tactical simulations are promising. If the Mord technology is as the Valen described, our phase shift weapons should bypass their shielding. Theory and practice are different things, Commander. Wilson handed Reed a datapad. Your final orders. The fleet jumps in 6 hours. Reed accepted the pad with a nod. What do we know about these Valen? Not much beyond what was in their distress call. Humanoid, apparently peaceful. Advanced enough for interstellar travel, but clearly behind us militarily. Dr. Miller will brief you fully during the journey. And if this is a trap? Wilson's face